Welcome to the magical land of Ever After High, where the stories come to life. Sit back, relax, and let the magic begin. Once upon a time in the magical land of Candia, there was an enormous castle made entirely of sweets. Its walls were made of chocolate and gumdrops. Its towers sparkled with spun sugar and candied fruits. And at its center stood a throne of pure white chocolate, guarded by 2 ferocious gummy bears. This was the home of the Sugar Plum Fairy, who ruled over Candia with kindness and a sweet tooth. One day, the Sugar Plum Fairy hosted a grand ball and sent out invitations to all the nearby kingdoms. Among the guests was a young knight named TOLEEN, who was known throughout the land for her bravery and her honesty. TOLEEN was so excited to attend the ball. She put on her finest armor, polished her sword until it gleamed like a beacon, and set off on her trusty steed. As soon as TOLEEN arrived at the castle, she was met with a sight that made her jaw drop. It was like stepping into a dream made of sugar and spice. TOLEEN entered the great hall and was immediately swept up in the festivities. Knights and princesses twirled and laughed. Enchanted creatures danced under the soft glow of crystal chandeliers. And everywhere TOLEEN looked, there were mountains of delectable treats. As the night wore on, TOLEEN found herself enjoying the party so much that she started to dance with a handsome prince. They spun and leaped around the dance floor, completely oblivious to everything else. But suddenly, TOLEEN felt a sharp pain in her leg. She stumbled and fell right into a nearby fountain. TOLEEN tried to stand up, but the more she struggled, the dirtier she became. And not just any dirt, mind you, but real mud. TOLEEN's armor and sword were coated in thick, sticky mud. TOLEEN was horrified. How could she have been so careless? She had ruined her brand new armor, and now everyone at the party was staring at her with amusement. The prince rushed to TOLEEN's side and helped her out of the fountain. He handed her a sparkling vial and said, "This is enchanted spring water. Pour it on your armor and watch it vanish." TOLEEN hesitated. She knew the spring water was supposed to be used only in case of a real emergency. But with her armor caked in mud, she didn't really have a choice. She poured the water over her head and watched as it dripped down her body. Her armor began to shine once again, gleaming brighter than ever before. But something strange happened. As the last drops of water evaporated off her armor, it turned black as night. TOLEEN gasped. Her once shining armor was now dull and lifeless. What had happened? Had the water cursed her armor? TOLEEN didn't know what to do. She could return home, but how could she face her people after ruining such a special occasion? Just then, the Sugar Plum Fairy approached TOLEEN. "My dear knight," she said in a voice like tinkling bells. "I heard what happened. Don't worry, I have a way to fix your armor." The Sugar Plum Fairy led TOLEEN to a secret room filled with all sorts of magical ingredients. With a flick of her wand, the Sugar Plum Fairy mixed up a bubbling potion and handed it to TOLEEN. "Just pour this on your armor, and it will be as good as new," she said with a smile. TOLEEN thanked the fairy and hurried back to the party. She found the prince and apologized for ruining the fun. "It was my fault," she said. "I shouldn't have drank the spring water." The prince placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Don't blame yourself, TOLEEN. Accidents happen. Besides, I'm sure the Sugar Plum Fairy will fix your armor in no time." TOLEEN smiled weakly. She knew the prince was trying to help, but she couldn't bear the thought of disappointing her people any more than she already had. So without another word, TOLEEN returned to the secret room. She took a deep breath and prepared to pour the potion onto her armor. But just as she was about to do it, she heard a knock at the door. Startled, TOLEEN quickly hid the potion behind some bubbling cauldrons. The door creaked open, and in stepped the Sugar Plum Fairy. "TOLEEN," she said, her voice no longer tinkling but sharp and cold like icicles. "I see you haven't fixed your armor yet." TOLEEN took a step back. I'm sorry, Your Majesty. I just need a little more time. The Sugar Plum Fairy's eyes narrowed. Time? You've already wasted enough time, Knight. Now I'm afraid I must confiscate that armor from you. Toleen's heart sank. She knew the Sugar Plum Fairy wasn't just angry. She was powerful enough to take away her sword, too. If the fairy took her sword, she would have nothing left. All her bravery, all her honor, all her purpose would be gone. Thinking fast, Toleen blurted out, "But, Your Majesty, I don't even own this armor. It belongs to Princess Celeste. I was just helping her get ready for the ball." The Sugar Plum Fairy's expression softened slightly. "Princess Celeste? Is that so?" Toleen nodded vigorously, hoping the fairy would believe her lie. The Sugar Plum Fairy waved her magic wand, and a shimmering portal appeared in the wall. "Very well, Knight. If you say this armor doesn't belong to you, then let us return it to Princess Celeste." Toleen felt her heart nearly burst with relief. She had lied to the Sugar Plum Fairy, and now she would have to find a way to make it up to her. But for now, she was just grateful that she still had her freedom. As Toleen walked through the portal, she could hear the Sugar Plum Fairy calling after her. "And remember, Knight, honesty is always the best policy." Toleen nodded, though she wasn't sure if the fairy was talking about her, or the princess who had borrowed the armor. Deep in the mystical friendship forest lived a young girl named MAIA. She had long flowing hair the color of sunshine, and a heart as big as the forest itself. One sunny afternoon, MAIA was skipping through the woods when she heard a tiny whimper. At first she thought it was just a small animal caught in a bird's snare, but as she followed the sound, she soon realized it was the cry of a lost puppy. Through the trees, MAIA saw a small, scared puppy sitting by a babbling brook. His fur was as black as midnight, and his eyes were pools of endless sadness. Without hesitation, MAIA crouched down and offered the puppy a friendly smile. "Hello there, little one. Are you lost?" The puppy looked up at MAIA and let out another whimper. He wagged his tail hesitantly, as if unsure of what to do. MAIA reached out a hand and gently stroked the puppy's head. He leaned into her touch and licked her hand gratefully. MAIA knew she couldn't leave the puppy alone in the forest, so she scooped him up and cradled him close. "Don't worry," she whispered. "I'll take care of you." Suddenly, a wise old owl hooted from a nearby branch. "Lost and found, eh? Sounds like a job for the forest friends." Before MAIA could ask any questions, the owl swooped down and landed on her shoulder. With a flick of his wings, he vanished into thin air. Only a moment later, he reappeared with a group of animals from the forest. There was Benny the badger, Trunky the squirrel, Shelly the turtle, and Finley the fox. They all gathered around MAIA and the puppy, eager to help. "What can we do?" asked Trunky, his bushy tail twitching with curiosity. MAIA explained about finding the puppy and how she wanted to help him find his way home. "We'd love to help, of course," said Benny the badger, his voice booming like thunder. "But we'll need some clues." Just then, Shelly the turtle noticed something. "Look," she said, pointing her webbed finger towards a nearby log. "There are some tracks here. It looks like the puppy was being chased." Said Finley the fox, tilting his head. "If we follow these tracks, they lead us towards the Whispering Waterfall. That's quite a distance." "Don't worry," said MAIA. "We'll take turns carrying the puppy so he doesn't get too tired." And with that, the forest friends set off towards the waterfall. The journey was long and tiring, but MAIA and the forest friends didn't give up. They helped each other along, sharing stories and jokes to keep their spirits high. Finally, they reached the Whispering Waterfall. It was a beautiful sight with sparkling water cascading over smooth stones. As the forest friends approached the waterfall, they heard a familiar bark. "That's the puppy," cried Trunky. The animals quickly hid behind some bushes and peered over. There they saw a little girl sitting by the waterfall's edge. She was crying and holding the puppy in her arms. "It's all right," Maya whispered to the girl. "We found you, little one." The girl jumped and wiped her tears away. "Oh, thank goodness," she exclaimed. "I've been looking everywhere for you, Toto." She hugged Toto tightly. "You must be Maya," she said. "I'm Lily, and this is my puppy, Toto. We got separated when some mean dog scared us. I was so worried I wouldn't find him." "Don't cry, Lily," said Maya, smiling. "We're all friends here, and friends always stick together." Lily and Toto thanked the forest friends for their help. Then she took Toto's leash, and they all set off down the path. As they walked, Maya couldn't help but feel happy. Not only had she helped reunite a lost puppy with his owner, but she had also made a new friend in Lily. Plus, she had learned that even when things seemed scary, all you needed was a little help from your friends, and a whole lot of courage. Every year in the town of Willow Creek, there was a special night called the Sky Lantern Festival. People would gather together and release sky lanterns into the night sky, making wishes as they let go. It was a magical sight, like hundreds of tiny stars dancing in the wind. This year the festival was extra special because Maya's shy best friend Zoe was going to be performing a song for everyone. Zoe was a talented singer, but she was also very nervous. She worried that everyone would laugh at her and she would make a fool of herself. As the sun began to set, Maya and Zoya walked towards the town square where the festival was being held. Zoya's hands were shaking and her voice trembled as she said, I don't think I can do this, Maya. What if they don't like my song? What if I forget the words? Zoya, you're amazing, Maya said, squeezing her friend's hand. You have a beautiful voice, and everyone will love your song, I promise. But Zoya wasn't so sure. She looked down at her feet, afraid to meet Maya's hopeful gaze. Suddenly they reached the town square. There were colorful lanterns hanging from every building, and the streets were filled with laughing townspeople. Zoya gasped. Look, Maya. It's so beautiful, she whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. It is beautiful, Maya agreed, but it's also a little overwhelming. Why don't we find somewhere quiet and you can calm down a bit? I'll be right outside the music hall. Meet me there in a few minutes, okay? Zoya nodded and hurried to hide behind a nearby tree. From outside the music hall, Maya watched as Zoe paced back and forth. She knew her friend needed a little encouragement. So Maya did something clever. She took a deep breath and began to sing. She sang a song about friendship and bravery, about facing your fears and chasing your dreams. As Maya sang, her voice echoed through the streets, reaching Zoya where she was hiding. At first, Zoya tried to stay hidden, but Maya's song was so beautiful that Zoya couldn't help but listen. She peeked out from behind the tree and saw Maya standing in front of the music hall, bathed in the warm glow of a lantern. Zoya felt a surge of courage. She was still nervous, but Maya's song had given her hope. Zoya straightened her dress, took a deep breath, and walked towards the music hall. When she reached the door, she knocked 3 times, then pushed it open and stepped inside. Everyone in the audience was silent until Zoya began to sing. Her voice was shaky at first, but as she continued, it grew stronger. She sang about facing your fears and chasing your dreams. And as she sang, the townspeople swayed to the music, tapping their feet and clapping their hands. When Zoya finished her song, the audience erupted into applause. Zoya blushed and curtsied. She couldn't believe how much everyone had enjoyed her performance. Later, as the sky lanterns were being released, Zoya found Maya in the crowd. Thank you, Maya, she whispered, her eyes shining with gratitude. I couldn't have done it without you. Of course, Maya replied with a smile. You were amazing, Zoya. You were so brave. Zoya looked up at the sky lanterns and whispered, I wish I could be as brave as you someday. Maya took Zoya's hand and said, You already are brave, Zoya. You just have to believe in yourself. Zoya squeezed Maia's hand, and together they watched as the sky lanterns danced in the night sky, carrying their wishes to the stars.